so much. So I'd like to thank the session conveners for the opportunity to speak today. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to share our work with you. So technological advances in insect surveillance, data intake, and information communication to end users is being realized and increasingly becoming commercially available. The technological changes are largely being driven by macroeconomic trends of increased cost of labor, international agricultural trade, shifting consumer demand, and a confluence of new hardware technologies that free computation from the desktop. So as professionals and practitioners of border security and crop protection, we have an opportunity to shape technological solutions to remove these barriers. Yet how we think about the problem and the solution will be critical to the success of the technology that we develop, but most importantly, its implementation. So today I'll share with you how we've been thinking about the problem and solution, and the solution that we've developed. So, of course, what is the problem? Well, with surveillance, part of the problem is that you want to know what it would take to have no new invasives. Well, ultimately, we'd like a surveillance system that could achieve that goal, but that's a major undertaking. And the challenge of invasive pests are many and broad, but arguably one of the big challenges is the inability to detect a rare event, a rare insect event, either an insect that's leaving its home and before it leaves, or once it arrives where you really don't want it. Solving this problem can actually minimize the size and duration of the management response that has to take place once an invasion does occur. Of course, the cost and the loss. So innovation in all aspects of modern life is seen as a socio-economic cure for many of the troubles of modern society. Arguably, nowhere is this more true than the need for innovation when you're dealing with highly mobile insect pests that don't recognize borders. So the way that we can think about this problem is kind of characterized in these two spheres. So firstly, the way that we think about the problem, and secondly, the way we solve the problem. Thinking of these independently, I don't believe it'll actually give us the solution that we want. So for example, a creative idea might get us rhetoric at best, and an engineering solution without really thinking about how we should be thinking about the problem might be great. We can engineer all kinds of things, but it often becomes not terribly useful. So this is where I think this is really what innovation is about. It's about aligning these two spheres of the way that we think about the problem and then the way that we solve it. So I'd like to share with you our innovation story and our first application, which is to fruit fly. So fruit fly is a major threat, as everybody would know. It's the number one, well, everyone in this audience, I would imagine. It's the number one biosecurity barrier to trade. It threatens US 18 billion worth of global trade. It prevents new markets from opening, and it causes crop loss of $30 billion. Monitoring for fruit fly is mandatory to trade. Millions of traps around the globe are checked manually every 7 to 14 days. As one small example, these are 2,000 manually inspected fruit fly traps across Adelaide, South Australia. As another small example, there are 94,000 of these in California alone. Most of the time, these traps are empty because it's fruit fly free. But sometimes fruit fly is present, and certainly in areas where fruit fly is endemic. So 7 to 14 days in the life of a fruit fly is hundreds of maggots in fruit, potentially. So we ask the question, what if you never had to check a manual trap again for it to be empty? Or what if you knew immediately when a fruit fly arrived? Well, with the technology that we've developed, you can. So our technology is called RapidAIM. So Rapid Automated Insect Monitoring. And we're a new era in biosecurity. We provide a data service where biosecurity officers, government, crop advisors, and growers can subscribe. They receive a real-time alert of the presence and locations of fruit fly, which allows them to respond rapidly and prevent the problem from increasing. So our magic is how we've combined our knowledge of insect behavior with our proprietary hardware and software to create an instrumented grid of low-powered smart traps. It's not a camera-based technology. It's a novel sensor. It's low power. It's communicated in a radio form. And it's a unique sensor similar to capturing the behavioral fingerprint of an insect, somewhat similar to when you get into your iPhone and you use your fingerprint to access it. So what we've done is we've created, designed and manufactured unique devices. They detect and send a signal through radio technology, currently using LoRa, so low, long-range wide area network, and then to the cloud, and to the cloud, then to the end user's phone. So we've tried to create something that's super simple, plug and play, no big solar panels, small batteries inside, 6.5-month life, that you can move around, that give you a picture of high resolution in real time. Here's a little bit more detail about the system. So here's our technology. It communicates to gateways, to the cloud, where there's analytics, data management, communication detection, forecast of pest hotspots and area freedom. Of course, we're constantly pulling in data all the time. It's real time. But then also the end user receives a dashboard, something simple, something they can respond to immediately. So of course, in surveillance, you often have the objectives of wanting, In surveillance, you have the objective of wanting to detect, and then once you detect something, respond and eradicate it, particularly in a pest-free area. But for pest management, it's similar. You're monitoring an endemic pest, you want to respond, and then you want to validate that your control is actually working. So we feel like RapidAIM addresses both of those situations, and it provides significant value to the end users. Because you get a real-time alert for a rapid response, that means less cost and less crop loss. Because you can see a high resolution of pest populations, you can target your delivery and evaluate whether your crop protection product or whatever management strategy you're using is working. It also gives you improved workflow. You're not sending people out to check empty traps for the sake of trying to figure out what's there. So you get a significant reduction in labor. You also get early warning of future hotspots, and not to mention the type of valuable data with risk and prediction and forecasting that we can generate by having extensive grids of this information and the data stream coming in. So what are we doing now? We've deployed our infrastructure in 5 locations across Australia, some of which are pest-free, and other areas, of course, fruit fly has been endemic for a long time. We're now monitoring efficiency, efficacy, things like false positives and false negatives. I won't show any of that data today because we're in the middle of that trial, and this part of the project is actually funded by a government white paper on improved surveillance through DOOR, pardon me, and managed by Horticulture Innovation. But here's what the product looks like. So you get on-farm pest locations in real time, and then, I'll go into more detail in a minute. And then you get validation of control. But because you have numerous of these devices at different spatial scale, you're able to generate regional pest risk, regional pest alerts, and regional pest forecast. And growers often ask, they always say, what's happening on my farm? I know what's going on, but what's happening around me? So it answers part of that question. And this is what the current output of the app looks like. Now, of course, because fruit fly is so sensitive, I will never show you data of fruit fly hotspots, but this is also real data of fruit fly-free situations. We've deployed 2 grids across Adelaide CBD, and there we've just zoomed into a grid. It gives you real time exactly what's happening. Shows you the dates above. Here's Hobart. We have another grid across Hobart. And just as an example, today, currently, without massive manufacturing of our product, we can reduce and save cost of surveillance by 35%. In addition, if you think about when an outbreak happens and what has to happen to control that, all hands on deck. A 10-fold increase in manual traps have to be deployed, and then daily checks of those. that can often cost, like a recent, the Tasmania outbreak a while back, it was costing $125,000 a day. It's a massive undertaking. So if we can improve one component of how we detect, respond, and demonstrate that we've actually have the problem under control, again, it's a massive cost saving. But also when we think about areas that do have fruit fly and are endemic, and we can create high resolution grids to detect. So this is an example in a fruit producing region where these are orchards, and each of these orchards have grids on their farm. That's 1 per 2 hectare. That create very high resolution pictures. Now, the other feature we have is that growers get to drop a spray icon when they spray, so they can actually see. First, they get to see where there's a hot spot. So let's just pretend for a minute that there might be a hot spot here. So a grower can target it, spray, and then they get validation whether or not their sprays are working. Now this is simulated, not real data. So Simville. I don't want to cause a trade problem. I'm not trying to cause a trade problem. That just gives you an idea of how quick and responsive. So this is made up data, but immediately when you open your screen, 90% of what you need to know is there. So this would say in the simulated data that there's a hot spot in this region. It tells you what's been going on. You drop a spray icon to see if the effect. This is showing this region for this day. So super quick. You can also look at the month profile to see what's been happening in the past. So if we talk about additional value of something like this, part of it's the feedback loop. So manual monitoring, what it does is, let's say you hang your traps, your manual traps, in 7 days you check them, and then that data takes a couple days to actually get input into a system, and then to communicate the information, and then to deliver a control. That's if everything's happening perfectly. With the system that's automated like this, you're talking about a really tight feedback loop. It's taking the guesswork out of pest management as well. So now you're talking about, detections in real time, deliver control, see if it's working. When we talk to growers, the thing they love most about it is just the first time they've ever been able to see where hotspots are, and then they can see if their control is working. It's not a calendar-based spray system. Okay, so what are the possible implications for market access in using RapidAIM? So we can kind of break these down into 3 categories. Of course, if you're in a fruit fly endemic area, let's say you're in Queensland and you're managing populations, you get early detection, targeted control, validation that it's working, but you also get transparency. You can show your trading partner or you can show your wholesaler that you're on top of the problem. And so possibly it might also have the advantage of changing post-harvest treatment, because the more you can do in the field to control your problem and the less likely you are to get infested fruit in your packing shed, the cheaper it is to control the problem and the less loss you're going to experience. If you're in a fruit fly-free area, I think what it does, it increases surveillance capacity. Creating something that met our goal of high-resolution detection meant we created a technology that had a very low price point. We moved away from camera-based technology specifically so we could achieve our goal. You can have more devices detecting, particularly in hotspots. You can respond quickly if there is an outbreak. But it allows for that rapid response if something does happen, and ultimately you're trying to reduce the loss. And then the cost savings of surveillance and eradication. With the increase in global trade, we will only continue to experience more pests crossing our borders. And of course, if you're in a place that's fruit fly free, status has been suspended, again, you can have a high resolution of the problem areas. We can see that now in areas where people were finger pointing a bit about who might be the problem, but ultimately the problem was feral plants in the creek beds. And you can see that clearly. So potentially it allows a community to come together, drive an area-wide management program while having their own data confidential, because each grower gets the app with their own farms. They don't see anybody else's. We're the only ones that sees what everybody's doing. And it allows then for that targeted control, validation, and transparency across a region over time. You can say, yes, we had a problem, but now look, we consistently can show that the problem's under control. So I'd like to think in those situations, you possibly could even move to a situation where you could eradicate the pest. And I know a lot of times we throw up our hands and we say, well, it's here now, and let's just get a reality check. We're never going to be able to pardon me, be pest-free again. But I'd like to think that we can. When you can see what's going on in real time, you can see the management outcome, I think it actually is a possibility. Okay, so Jess originally asked me to say any lessons learned from developing surveillance technology. Now, most of you probably don't know, but until about 6 months ago, I was a principal research scientist at CSRO for about 25 years. And we invented this technology because just not knowing where pests are and when is the biggest barrier to adopting best practice. And we happened to stumble on developing something that really worked. So this has been some of our lessons learned from developing a technology, exiting CSRO, forming a company, and licensing our technology back to the company. So first of all, we learned that you have got to get out of the building. You have got to talk to the people who really need what you have and really have a problem to solve. Also, the faster that you can get something in the field, the faster you can learn from it. So our first product was just a retrofit of a probodelt trap, but it allowed us to test our technology, to hear what growers had to say, to hear what biosecurity officers had to say. So we could test, learn, refine, repeat. We also had great access to training about how to actually take a product to market, and we continue to get great access from the AIM program that SAR developed. And we surround ourselves with great mentors who know something about business, which clearly is something that the team does not. But we're learning every single day, and it's been an exciting journey. So I think in summary, innovation in digital technology is removing these barriers. It's removing the barrier to invasive pest detection, the delimitation when you do have an outbreak, monitoring for endemic populations to get control, validating that control, and even the potential to return to a pest-free status, to open up trade. So this is us. This is our team. We were 3 CSRO scientists for many years. And like I said, we invented a technology that we think solves a great problem. We're excited about our technology. We've rolled it out across the country and testing it and trialing it. And we are now ready to provide a commercial offering. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to entertain questions at the end of the session. So thank you very much.